our Across the Aisle segment tonight, liberal activists are calling for the impeachment of President Trump, and it has some Democratic leaders worried. At town halls all across the country, Democratic members of Congress are facing questions from activists about when they're going to be bringing charges up, impeachment charges against the president. This leaves Democrats in a tough position. They don't want to risk alienating their base, but if they do bring up impeachment charges against a president who spent 1 month in office and has committed 0 high crimes or misdemeanors, then they're going to lose all credibility with the American people. Take a look.
Why is it appropriate to call for the impeachment of the president less than a month after him taking office?
I have not called for the impeachment yet. He's doing it himself. Let me just say that the statement I made was a statement in response to questions and pleas that I'm getting from many citizens across this country. What are we going to do?
Any of the things that the Congressman said are grounds for displeasure and unease in the public about the performance of this president, who has acted in a way that is strategically incoherent, that is incompetent, and that is reckless. And that is not grounds for impeachment. When and if he breaks the law, that is when something like that would come up. But that's not the subject of today.
Joining me again, Democratic strategist Joel Payne. Joel, thanks for sticking around.
Of course. Glad to be back.
All right, Joel, let me ask you about this. This is not the first talk about levying impeachment charges against President Trump. Late last week, actually, I think it was Thursday or Friday, on Twitter, hashtag Trump impeachment party was trending. I mean, it had hundreds of thousands of tweets that were going into it. We heard California Congresswoman Maxine Waters. She's not the only member of Congress who's been talking about impeachment or talking about her constituents talking about impeachment. But weigh in on this with me, because this seems to be, I guess I'm curious, is this what mainstream Democrats, mainstream liberals, do they want impeachment charges brought against the president?
Look, you're not going to get much of a fight on me from this one. I don't think that's the place for Democrats to focus. I mean, of course, we need to hold any of our public servants accountable. And if somebody does something that is worthy of impeachment or worthy of rebuke or censure or anything like that, there's a process in place to do that. But, I think what Democrats want, and I think what Democrats are seeing, is energy from the base of the party that's being transferred to the leadership, whether it's Schumer, Pelosi, others, that we're not going to let Donald Trump walk around as if he has some kind of mandate, and he doesn't.
Right, that's my least favorite word in politics. On both sides of the aisle, mandate.
He just doesn't.
No. Yeah. It doesn't, no matter who you are. President Obama didn't have a mandate. President Trump doesn't have a mandate. You do not have a mandate to do whatever you want just because you win the election. That's simply not how our politics works. You represent all the American people, right, left, regardless of your political party. Joel, and I figured we'd agree on this. To me, it's crazy to call for the impeachment of a president just because you disagree with him on policy. I mean, I oppose probably 95% of what President Obama did, and that's being generous. And there's no grounds for impeachment unless you break the law. Trump has not broken the law, agree or disagree on his policies.
I don't think so. And I say I don't think so. I hedge a little bit on that because we've already had the courts weigh in on some of the things that he's attempted to do. You're right. We should not be just chasing impeachment. That's a very treacherous process to take the country through. But again, accountability is important. And I think maybe some people may be misclassifying what they're looking for. I think everybody wants accountability. They want our president to be held accountable, and I think there are steps in place to make sure that accountability can be held. But I don't think impeachment is the right route. I think actually Democrats, in a lot of cases, are probably going to just sit back and allow Donald Trump to make these mistakes and do these self-inflicted wounds and see what the fallout is. I don't think the specter of impeachment needs to be there.
Right. No, I think Democrats, and the New York Times actually had an editorial about this today, but I think Democrats in some cases are hurting themselves calling for impeachment because it's just enlivening the Trump base. It's making people who voted for Donald Trump feel all the stronger and feel like they're still on the campaign trail because they have to fight back. But I completely agree with you about accountability. Joel, I'm pretty open on this show about the fact that I voted for Donald Trump, that I'm a Republican, that I'm a conservative, but I'm also the first person to hold his feet to the fire if I think that what he's doing, is incorrect or is stupid or what have you. I mean, when it came to the rollout of the immigration order, I was the first one that said, no, that was not smooth. You should have been clearer in communicating what that was so we could have avoided the court battle here. But when it comes to accountability, and I want you to weigh in on this too, Donald Trump tweeted about accountability in the media. And I want to show this tweet on the screen. He talked about the fake news media, about it's not his enemy personally, it's the enemy of the American people when it comes to fake news. And Joel, I actually do agree with him in a sense. I don't know that I would have characterized the media as the enemy of the American people, because I reserve that term for terrorists or enemy combatants. But the job of the media, in my opinion, is to hold elected officials accountable, not to take a certain side or take a certain bias. And I understand his point on there, but I wanted you to weigh in too.
Yeah, so I think this is where we'll diverge a little bit. Look, the president has a bad habit of anything he doesn't like, that doesn't show favor to him, that does not put him in the most positive light. He puts the most extreme label on it. He calls polls that are bad polls fake news, right? No, they're not fake news. They're a reflection of sentiment and a snapshot of time. He calls court decisions, he calls the judges so-called judges. I mean, there is this very disturbing trend of the president, anything he does not like that does not line up with his worldview, he's going to attack it. He's a very skilled salesperson.
Right.
Right.
No, he's a very skilled negotiator.
This is
but
government, and he can't do that.
Let me clarify what I meant. I mean, I do think it's hard to defend in a certain sense. It's hard to defend a media that fed Hillary Clinton questions during the debate. That's unethical by anybody's standards, particularly journalistic standards. This is the same media that, paraded those women before the election with unsubstantiated claims that were later debunked. This is the same media, that reported on hate crimes against Muslims right after the election of Donald Trump, crimes that later, the suspects, or the victims, I should say, admitted that they made up just for publicity. I mean, it is hard to defend the mainstream media when they've done these things towards Donald Trump.
Liz, I guess my attitude is this. There are going to be good and bad actors in any line of business. There are some media outlets. There are some publications right now, both, by the way, not just progressive or liberal, but also more conservative. I think the Wall Street Journal, I think the New York Times, I think the Washington Post, I think Politico. I think there's really good reporting that's going on right now, and that's healthy. And I think it's also healthy for our president to recognize that, and recognize the fact that the media is there not for his purpose and not for the purpose of his political enemies, but really for truth. The reason why your show is on the air is to show truth and display, hey, these are the facts as we know it, or from this person's perspective. I think the fact that the president seems to have a problem with a very vibrant, active, free press, that's got to be concerning to a lot of Americans. So I don't like this idea of the president constantly parading around everything as fake news.
Right, and I have a problem, like you said, with maybe the extreme label. I don't agree with that. That's not what I would have characterized the media. I do agree with you on the point that the purpose of the press is to report the truth, to report the facts, and perhaps to provide opinion commentary on those facts. But when they blur the facts, when they distort the facts, and then provide opinion commentary or even accusations or allegations, that I do have a problem with. And I think that many mainstream outlets are guilty of doing just that. Joel, we're out of time. Thanks so much for being here. All right, guys, our final tipping point of the night. If you need a safe space and an emotional support pony, probably shouldn't be a journalist. More on that when we come back.